that trap of focusing too much on the platform is something that does come up fairly often.
It's common.
That if you build it, they will come, but that's not true. If you build it, you can just have a nice thing in the corner that no one ever sees or experiences.
Being realistic about what your business needs will also help you to be realistic about what kind of budgets that you need. And the great news is that you don't have to go in blind. Measurement of everything you do is key. Jordan, what's our typical saying that we always talk about measurement?
If it isn't measured, it isn't managed.
There you go. Hey everybody, welcome to the Challngtunity Podcast. I'm Chris Lawson, your host. We have, I would say, an episode today that is a little bit more typical, talking specifically about how to market for B2B businesses or companies or organizations. It's a topic that is, I think, talked about quite a bit, but there are specific things that are really important that we want to touch on today. Before we get into it, though, I'd love to introduce once again my co-host, Jordan Woolf, who believes the world isn't round because, I quote, it's not.
It's cubed.
Well, technically the world isn't round. It's like a little bit squishy, like depends on the moon's gravitational pull. And yeah, so there's your hot take. The world is not perfectly round. Mm-hmm. So if our audience has, tuned in today and, they don't know anything about the earth and its, circumference or anything like that. I mean, they just learned something.
Yeah.
Science.
The episode today will be, like you said, a little bit more, standard in a way, but it's for a topic that gets overlooked a lot. B2C or business to consumer brands and products are exciting. They get a lot of the limelight. They get a lot of the attention, but not many people know that B2B or business to business type businesses, as well as the market for B2B, is about between 1.5 to 2 times as large as B2C. So there's a lot of businesses out there that are actually doing B2B and using marketing to solve challenges within their environment. So understanding how B2B works is probably more common of a problem that people are facing. Whether you're a marketer or a business manager, chances are you're more likely to own a business that's in B2B or work at a business that's in B2B than in B2C.
That's true. And, in my experience on the strategy side, dealing with these companies is they aren't cookie cutter. So you have businesses that are huge, multinational monstrosities, all the way down to real small mom and pop shops that are just, creating pigs in the oil and gas industry, or they're, making, access mats or whatever the case might be. So a lot of the time it isn't cookie cutter. And the truth is that within the realm of business to business or B2B, given you could be an oil and gas company, manufacturing, millwork, so on and so forth, the business development part of that business can look very different one to the next. A lot of the time we hear about things like request for proposals, request for quotes. RFP processes are very, very typical, but another hot take, in a lot of cases for B2B businesses, although you live in RFP land, your digital marketing has a big part to play in the decision-making process for those companies that are receiving those documents.
Yeah, and the entity that you're dealing with when you're, working between two businesses, it's not as simple as an individual. I'm looking to buy a pair of shoes. I'm looking to fulfill an order for my company's needs that might be a whole bunch of things that I have other people who have requirements from this purchase who are also involved in the decision. And it's a little more complex of an environment on that front. So having an understanding of how that differentiates from things that might work for B2C don't necessarily work for B2B and vice versa. So this it's an important area for people to get a handle on and also look at with kind of clear eyes that it is very unique, and every business and every competitive environment is going to have its little subtleties that need to be brought into it.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about RFPs a moment ago. A lot of the time you're on an approved vendors list. That's another way that you get your business. Well, truth is, if you're the small player that can service, you might actually be the best company that can service that big entity by being on their approved vendors list. How are you going to get on that list? It's not just by who you know. There are ways of getting in front of those people, and having smaller companies or organizations turn into mid to large size corporations over time. Marketing, again, has a play with that. Or maybe you're on the other side of it where, and I hear this often where, hey, Chris, there's only actually like 6 companies that we could actually partner with. It's a very niche industry. It's very small, but it's across the globe or whatever. Well, now we start getting to the world of account-based marketing. How does that look? How do you really work to try to market to move the needle on the relationship with some of these outside of just playing golf, shaking hands and touching base every once in a while and providing the small bits of value that's there. So I think understanding the business development side is a very important thing before you start tackling any kind of marketing endeavor. Which then gets you into the buyer's journey, Jordan, which, as you know, can vary as well depending on the type of company you are.
Yeah. When you're going through a buyer's journey with any business, it's, you can look at it from the very big top level of, you have your same steps that everybody goes through, but psychologically within a business, you have so many other players that are typically also coming into affect the decisions. Even if you're talking to one person, you're really talking to a suite of people that stand behind them, that have their own reasons why this individual is talking to you. And, you have to get budgets approved. You have to get things through, like RFPs is a very complex and formal process. Sometimes there is just an informal process where, Lydia has to check off on it, and you've got to pass it past this person who's going to be able to double check that the budget fits what their department needs. And it's never really as simple as it seems to be on the surface. B2B though is a lot of fun when you do figure those things out. It's also an area where people get trapped in kind of the old ways. You see, especially in older industries, you'll get that kind of handshake methodology that people get. It feels good. It's like, oh yeah, I know everybody I work with, and we just do handshake deals, and why would I ever do marketing? Well, it's sure working for you today, but that's left the door open for the person who's going to come in and go like, oh, how do I break into a market where everything's all handshake? Well, I use my marketing, and I'm going to be more aggressive, and I'm going to get the message out there. I'm going to be more present, and that'll help me to kind of break through somewhere. And then they become a player, and next thing you know, you're not in such a stable environment.
Well, I think you're onto something there, because the reality is that a lot of the time when B2B businesses look to agencies or their marketing departments to get results is because they're being reactive to something as opposed to being proactive. And the truth is, as we've learned in recent years, you can run into things like, supply chain issues or whatever the case might be. And next thing you know, that client or that partner of yours that have been supplying things for 15 years, your dad, set up that relationship or whatever the case might be, is no longer reliable. So you're talking about Lydia, but there's also, Jonathan, who's out in the field, and if he doesn't get something fixed by noon tomorrow, he's out X millions of dollars. And so, a lot of the time, the account-based marketing that you're doing, or the way that you've built up your brand through brand awareness tactics, those types of things are what are going to enable Jonathan to pick up the phone, or whoever's above him to make a phone call to ensure that he can get that whatever he's working on up and running in the field by noon that next day. Or the consequences can sometimes not just be huge financially, but it can damage relationships. It can damage partnerships. It can damage reoccurring revenue that, so, understanding the business development side of it, but the buyer's journey is also important, because it isn't just these long-term cycles, or this company orders X number of valves from us every single year, or we are the matting supplier, or, we're the manufacturer for this company. The reality is there are cycles that these companies go through. Some are large, but some of them are real quick. And a lot of the time, that's where the smaller B2B players are able to get in there, and your marketing can have a big part to play in that.
Yeah, I think it's also important to mention that while we have been so far using some examples of products primarily that people are delivering within B2B, B2B service is huge. Like even the agency world is technically B2B. That's what we're here doing. So the ways that changes what we might market and the way that we do our investments in time and energy in our marketing mix puts
Yeah.
actually quite a bit more emphasis on the service and the experience, and that long-term relationship of the marketing continues even after you've signed the deal and you're building the relationship. You're making sure that you're building that bond. You're kind of representing
Yeah.
the things you want to in the marketplace.
Well, and we're seeing that in marketing methodologies over the last number of years. I mean, HubSpot, has the flywheel, and within there, it's not just your marketing and your sales, it's your servicing functionality as well. And which, by the way, is a lot more than just surveys and NPS or Net Promoter Score type stuff. It's how you're remarketing to your audience that you're already clients, how you're servicing them. It's very, very, very important. And keeping in mind that there's always going to be sales and opportunities that are floating out there. And if you're not on top of it as far as, getting your message out to your audience, when that need comes, you may not be top of mind, even if they're a current client. Like we find that all the time. Like Jordan, you mentioned as an agency, our clients have needs all the time, and we're really good at, touching base with our clients very consistently and being very transparent. But we also have automations and things like that are going out to make sure that we're top of mind when these things come up. A lot of other B2B companies, especially agencies, don't do that. And there's a lot of missed opportunity. But more than anything, it's not just about the agency making that extra bit of revenue. It's about the customer feeling supported so that there's never, ever any reason why they feel like they have a need to go elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Let's maybe talk a bit about the kind of move to digital that's made an impact on B2B. B2B has been around for forever, just like B2C, and it's evolved, and how marketing has grown and been used for these types of businesses has grown as well. And like anything else these days, it's digitizing. You want to make sure that you're available in the right places and on the right technology and in the right times when people are going through their various stages of that buying process.
Yeah.
And that really comes down to having really good platforms where people can see you and you can be visible and you can kind of inject that value, and then also routines around them to keep that energy, that kind of dynamism going, and make sure that it is something that's growing and becoming resonant within the target audience and customers that you're trying to go for.
Well, you're right. And, we're talking about B2B, but, going back to B2C, where we have business to consumer, even direct to consumer, we're all consumers in one way or another. We all buy jugs of milk or eggs or something at the store. We buy clothing, whatever. We go through a decision-making process when we're buying any product, whether it be based on price, the products we resonate with, whatever the case might be. All those things that we've learned 10, 15 years ago where the consumer market really took off with marketing, it's in the B2B world now. So all those same thought processes that we go through when we're trying to make decisions, they're all there. So when we're talking about platforms and routines, my experience, being very honest with you, a lot of B2B companies put way more weight on the platforms, such as your website, apps, the e-commerce functionality, way more than the routines that are going to drive the revenue to those parts. And I feel that there's good reason for that. It's tangible. You can touch it. You can, actually see what you're doing there. Whereas these routines sometimes feel like a black box. But there is a difference, and there is an importance in focusing on your platforms and your routines.
Definitely. Yeah. I think that trap of focusing too much on the platform is something that does come up fairly often.
It's common.
That if you build it, they will come, but that's not true. If you build it, you can just have a nice thing in the corner that no one ever sees or experiences. But it's also, it can be wise to invest in the platform as well. It's got its own advantages. If you have a marketplace where everybody's got to, get a physical catalog for your parts, for your, industrial parts products, and they have to flip through that manual and keep it in their truck and call up, the office and scribble down numbers and stuff. Or you can just put it on your website and people can add things to a cart and send off a quote request. That's going to make your service and your ability to, impact that market smoother, better, faster, stronger. And that's using technology wisely. Now you have to do marketing
or even
so that people actually can see that, get exposed to it.
Or even just having your spec sheets and such be crawlable by Google, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're absolutely correct. Somebody's out doing whatever, they need an answer right away. What are they doing? Right? If they don't have that book shoved in the back seat of their truck, they're going online, assuming they have service. I mean, that's another topic. But regardless, is if you have that information, those spec sheets or whatever the case might be right on your site, it might answer a question for them right away. It might not be about lead generation, right? It might just be as simple as, they went to ABC Valve Co. and they had all the information, and XYZ Valve Co. that we normally use didn't have anything. That experience is poor. So you're right, Jordan. The platform can be essential in more ways than just being a brand, talking about us type thing, an online brochure. It can be that thing that can help provide tools for your team or for your customers when they need them.
Yeah, and as if you have nowhere to send people, even if you do a great ad and you can not stick the landing by sending them to a website that people are confused or they don't understand the value of your business or it doesn't communicate well, your placement in the marketplace. Yeah. So, it is important to have a good platform, but the routines are going to be the thing that if you don't do those at all, then, it doesn't matter how good it is, you're going nowhere. So yeah. The search ads, social combo is usually a good place to start. The
trio. Mm-hmm. Well, and that's true in B2B, but I think it's just true in any organization. Usually the trio is you need to rank well for most industries. You need to make sure that you're being responsible with your social media because that usually has something to do with the conversion funnel in one way or another. And keep in mind, it's not always business development. It could be having the best employees. It could be career HR based. It could be demonstrating safety, your values, your principles, environmental responsibility. Like social has a huge part to play. We haven't even talked about that really at all. And then your ads, which in all B2B businesses, you have the ability to put your message in front of the individuals that you want to work with on X rotation, right? And it can be relevant and it can help progress your account-based marketing strategy or whatever the case you're working on. So those routines coupled with a platform is built to guide users the way that they need to go, not necessarily the way that they think they need to go, is very important. It's going to help increase conversions and however you're measuring that, which leads me to my last point as I take a breath. The measurement of everything you do is key. Jordan, what's our typical saying that we always talk about measurement?
If it isn't measured, it isn't managed.
There you go. And it's just true.
Yeah.
It's just true.
Yeah.
So let me throw it over to you then, Jordan. You are, maybe we'll make up a scenario. You are the general manager of a mid-sized, B2B business. We'll say, millwork or something like that. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. And you don't have marketing people in-house, but guess what? You know enough to be dangerous. Like you understand social media, things like that. You start doing your research and things are just confusing. You don't know where to start, right? All you know is that you have to do something. Where do you go? Where do you start?
Yeah. I mean, if you're coming from the perspective of someone running a business, you've got your time and you've got your money, and those are, fundamental restrictions. You don't have an unlimited amount of time and you don't have an unlimited amount of money. So within the context of that, it's really important to kind of back your way into that. Because if you start thinking about dollars and cents, it's like, how much do I spend money wise? How much do I spend time wise on this problem? It's kind of hard to justify unless you have some sort of framework to judge that by. So one way to look at that problem is to go, well, what is my objective? So how big is the objective? If you have a very large objective, then it requires a large amount of effort in order to get there. Time, it can be money. If you have a environment, on the other hand, where you've got other people doing lots of activity, then you also have to make a lot of effort to overcome what they're doing or become more visible in that landscape. Mm-hmm. If they're doing less, then it'll be more, cost effective for you. You're gonna be able to get away with doing less and getting more for it. So having a sense of your objectives on one side, or what we call objective first planning, and on the other side, you've got your kind of environmental or the landscape in which you're stepping into, will help you to define a good mix and good measurement based upon those objectives. So every objective should have goals and, like SMART goals, simple, measurable, etc., where we can, have points of data that will tell us whether we're on that path to achieving that objective or not. And if we are, then we keep, doing the things that we're doing. If we're not, then we adjust our strategy. We, think about whether we do need to invest more heavily in things, or we need to change our marketing mix. Those are all things that require those structural elements, the objectives on one hand, and some way to view and perceive the placement of the market and the activity going on out there.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd support everything you just said. I think when you have a really clear understanding of your audience and your objective, you can then start building out a strategy based on what you're going to do with your platforms and your routines. I think a very important question that a lot of people don't really think about is, what is that runway? So if your runway is really short, well, that just kind of eliminates some of your options, right? So if your whole goal here is the market requires us to be top and center right now, well, focusing on your organic search that could potentially get you to rank properly in 6 to 9 months is probably not the strategy to go with, right? But at the same time, if your strategy or the way that, or whatever your goal is, if it can be accomplished long-term, or maybe you're trying to grab market share long-term or be that long, player, your runway is going to be a bit different. So being realistic about what your business needs will also help you to be realistic about what kind of budgets that you need. And the great news is that you don't have to go in blind. You can very easily pull data. So for example, online advertising, most networks have forecasting tools. So you have the ability to kind of take a look at what kind of budget you actually need per day, per month, per quarter, per year in order to actually target your market effectively.
Yeah, an example of this would be like, let's say I'm starting a new, like let's stick with the example of the millwork kind of company, but I want to hire a sales team to help grow my business, but I can't really afford one if I don't know that they're going to have the leads coming in the door to actually keep them busy. So you have to look at your marketing mix and go, what are my opportunities? If your objective is to build the team, how many, leads do I need to feed that team so that I can afford that team so that they can, have salaries and have their own careers and success within my business. But starting at zero today, how do I get there? What marketing strategies help me do that? Advertising again is a much better short-term strategy than say search. But search will get you there more reliably in the long term. So maybe you kind of do a ramp up in one, you use ads to get to the other so that you can kind of keep your costs managed while getting to that goal and objective and building that team and scaling it along the way.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, let's move to another kind of topic that's related, and that's just really anything to do with your brand. Because a lot of the time when you're, especially in B2B, you stand for something. It's a lot more than just a product that has a solution and it's a commodity. Sure, we want to find out what Clorox thinks about some kind of social justice thing or whatever. But the reality is when you're dealing with B2B, a lot of the time you're talking about large entities that are within certain regions that have governing laws that need to work with other companies that share, similar responsibilities, things like that. So, some of the things that I think about are things like environmental responsibility, safety, those types of things. And when you think about your brand, when someone sees that brand, what it stands for is something that is inside you, right? You understand that. So how you build it is very important, and marketing can have a big part to play in that.
Yeah, this kind of goes hand in hand even with thought leadership or, product innovation. You need to be able to communicate these things. Sometimes they're hidden within your processes or your back of office philosophies, or they're within the products or your patents that, are not inherently visible when you see that logo. Branding is not just how many hats with your logo on it you can give away at a trade show. It's how effective is it when somebody sees that logo or sees a mention of your name or hears a mention of your name. The things that it triggers in their mind are aligned with what you want them to be triggered and connected with. Are you known for quality service? Are you known for being reliable? Are you known for delivering an innovative product or service? Those are all things that come out in your marketing efforts and building that through these combination of marketing and PR type efforts.
Well, and here's a tip for you. Don't say it, show it. You don't have to go out there and show that you're an equal or say that you're an equal, opportunities organization. Just show it. Social media is a great platform for that. You don't have to show or talk all about your safety. Just show it. Environmental responsibility. Just show it. you fall into traps a lot of the time as an organization when you're blurbing out all these things that people should just already think about you in the first place. And same thing goes with things like thought leadership or industry publications. It doesn't just have to be through social media and things like that. When you're out in the world and you're showcasing yourself in, I don't know, maybe you're speaking at a trade show, maybe you're, I don't know, trying to, do a 2-page spread or something in your local, magazine or some industry specific book or whatever the case might be. You don't need to sit here and tell everybody what your values are all the time. Just showcase it through everything that you do, because at the end of the day, your brand on its own will stand for those things.
Yeah. Now, we kind of covered quite a bit today. We kind of talked about general best practices and how B2B might be a little bit different than B2C. But, I'm going to kind of bury the lead here where, we should have really started with saying that, I compared that B2C is about, 1.5 to, no, B2B is 2 times as large as B2C on average, as far as like a number of companies and economic activity. But it doesn't get the share of the marketing discussion. It doesn't get that same level of care and attention on the marketing side. And I think that that's kind of a shame. It's a hidden opportunity for a lot of businesses that are in the B2B side, or business owners, marketers that are at these companies, because I see this over and over and over again, where because of this, dark corner where you're not paying attention to marketing in the same level, because it's not, it's not as sexy sometimes. Coca-Cola is you can do this flashy commercial and it's great, but you put in just a little bit of effort into this and it gets a lot more impact because of that, because you're maybe the only one actually doing the work and getting the marketing efforts out there. So you can see these businesses just explode when they start embracing some of these concepts.
Well, I think a lot of the time it's because, depending on where you are geographically, all you have to do is open up shop and have a decent solution and you've earned revenue, right? It hasn't been until recent years where you have to sharpen your pencil that, what you stand for and those types of things actually matter. And so maybe you don't have a marketing person in your office. That's okay. There is so much resource out there online, including, hey, there's a podcast right now that you're watching that sometimes can provide some resource for you. Sometimes, just take a step out there, ask questions. It's when you're not asking questions that you're not going to find answers. All that being said, Jordan, I think let's put a pin on everything B2B right now, because I think down the road we'll probably do a second episode dedicated to it, because it's just such a huge world. And I think we've already, made people drink from a fire hose in this episode.
Yeah, we fortunately skipped over tactics. Maybe we'll get into more of a tactics episode in another one.
We did. Well, that being said, we do appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining the Challngtunity podcast here today. If you're here, reach out to us. You can go to our website. You can reach us out on social media. We'd love to hear your feedback on the content that we're producing. Maybe you're listening or watching it by fluke. I don't know. We are on all major social media platforms, but also we stream on all major podcasting platforms, including you get to see our lovely faces on YouTube. So when you go to those platforms, social or podcast related, don't be scared. Hit the button, subscribe. You'll find out when there's new episodes that are coming out, which, little hint, it's every 2 weeks on a Wednesday. For the most part, pretty early in the morning because they are scheduled. So thanks, everybody. We hope you're well, and we look forward to seeing you around the corner on the next episode. Cheers.